Catherine Berbelsing, you might know who she is. She's known as Britain's strictest head teacher. She is basically being taken to court because in her school she's essentially got a ban on prayer. What's happened now is a Muslim pupil has basically said this is not acceptable and it's discriminating against the Islamic faith because there is got a very demonstrable way of praying. Peter, let me just ask you a simple question. Should we just kind of ban all religion from schools?
On the contrary, I think all schools, if I could have anything to do with the legislation, all schools should be free to have prayer if they want. I'm in favour of there being Christian schools, and therefore I have to be in favour of there being Muslim schools if people want there to be, and even atheist schools if people want there to be. I don't think schools should be told they can't express or suggest any religious belief at all. And that leaves me in a rather awkward position with Catherine Berbelsing, who I like very much and think is a terrific teacher and who's done a fantastic job with the Michaela School. But I think that really you have to accept that there has to be prayer in schools if people want it.
Do you agree, Alan?
Well, I quite like the American separation of church and state on this issue, generally. I think there's a problem that in the so-called... no one even says it anymore. People are embarrassed saying a Christian country, a C of E country, that, you know, when I was growing up, there'd be prayers and hymns sung at school. Very little of that now. And actually, the Church of England is probably doing a better job than anything else to have less people follow it with not pursuing areas of faith. So I think there's a lack of commitment and promotion of religion and faith that's embarrassing. Gatekeepers don't do it. The problem is in an education setting now. I think that Catherine Berbelsing is really right in this situation. She has demonstrably illuminated what it means to have a great performance record, to have consistency in having children from all walks of life with a whole, you know, talk about many different types of ethnic backgrounds and class groups that have consistently scored really, really highly in terms of their academic performance and had unity. And the role of schooling, if anything else, is to create a sense of a universal project, who we all are within Britain, within England, as a society. And that really speaks to partly the failure of the multicultural model and why integration with people understanding about values and that kind of thing was all part of it. And I think that she's done a really good job in getting different groups together, having compromises, because there are Jehovah's Witnesses there are Christians, there are Muslims, there are secular people who all don't want certain things. She's saying these are the rules of the school. And different schools, to Peter's point, can have different rules. I could definitely go along with that. You have academies and others. And I think that what we're seeing now, like we're seeing with the Berkeley School, is we're seeing a situation where there's a violent threat of you can't say that, or a legal threat of you can't do that, with an attempt to squash the secular situation. And I'm very concerned about it, that we're seeing some of this. And unfortunately, usually it's around the kind of concerns around Islam. And I think we have to address it and talk about it everywhere and deal with it and not shy away from it. And it's particularly concerning that schools get threatened with bombs and violence, regardless of what's happening in other parts of the world. It's just unacceptable.
That's indefensible, and no one defends that, and that's a disgrace. Whoever is responsible for that must be condemned, and one hopes that the police will find out who they are. But it's separate. If the truth is, though, for me, it would be an act of hypocrisy to say anything other than what I say. If a lot of children at Michaela School wanted to have Christian prayers, and they went to the head and said, we want to have a Christian prayer at some time on every day of the week, then what would I have to say? I'd have to say that I supported them. Well, if a group of children come and say they want to have Muslim prayers, I have to, in all fairness, say they should do it as well. It doesn't take very long. It's a small part out of the day. In general, religious belief supports the ideas of discipline and self-control and trust, which
But what this headmaster is saying, by the way, for anyone not familiar with the story, she's saying that they were doing collective prayer, those people that wanted to, in the playground. And then she's saying then what started happening was she's then started noticing things changing as a dynamic in a school. She's saying that, for example, people were then being pressured to do things like wear headscarves, or perhaps being pressured to not do this because that was haram and this was haram and all the rest of it. So then she then said, basically, this is upsetting the kind of harmony within the school. So you know what? I'm just going to pull the plug on all of it. We're not going to do it. So that's the kind of background to to this. So let me know what you think to it all. It'll be absolutely fascinating to see what the outcome of this legal challenge is. Lots of people getting in touch and saying if you don't like the parameters of the school, if you're someone that wants to go and pray and do whatever it is, then go to a different school. Why is it this notion that you dislike something, so you've got to try and change something?
But Michelle,
well, she had that rule, just to say that rule was in place already. The Muslim students and parents that sent them there knew about this rule. And one of the things is that you can't have unsupervised access, and because of the specific nature of the school, all of which is explicitly clear when people join it.
Sure, but I still think that trying to getting yourself involved in a dispute over whether people can pray or not is not necessarily a good way of reaching a compromise.
I mean, you made the good point as well. The Islamist fanatics that are going around thinking it's okay to issue bomb threats to schools because you're not getting your own way is disgraceful, and it's a slippery slope, but that's what you get when you allow aggressive mobs, basically, to start doing things like pushing school teachers into hiding, fearing for their life. You let that stuff go on and it'll just expand and expand. Look, Peter says,